The morning of my 30th birthday felt like a fresh page in a sketchbook. Full of promise, I was buzzing around the kitchen of my little house on Pinewood Lane. A place I'd poured my heart into for 4 years. This wasn't just a house, it was my sanctuary. My showroom, my dream. As an interior designer, I'd turned a sagging, century-old cottage into a masterpiece: polished oak floors, hand-painted tiles, and a backyard bursting with wild roses that glowed pink in the summer. Every corner held a piece of me. From the skylight I'd installed myself to the vintage chandelier I'd haggled for at a flea market. This place wasn't just where I lived, it was where I created. Where clients walked in and gasped at my work. I'd planned a small birthday party. Nothing fancy, just the family. My parents, my older brother Torin, and my cousin Isolde were coming over. The table was set with mismatched plates. A chocolate raspberry cake sat proudly in the center. And the air smelled of fresh coffee. I was in my element, humming as I arranged candles. Torin arrived first, his engineer's practicality showing in his quick hug and a bottle of wine. My parents followed, Mom's eyes crinkling with a smile. Dad quieter than usual. Isolde swept in last, her bank teller polish on full display, silk scarf, perfect nails, and that dazzling smile that always felt a little too bright. "Elowin, open your gift," Mom said, her voice warm but shaky as she handed me a silver-wrapped envelope tied with a gold ribbon. It looked like something precious, like a handwritten letter or a keepsake. I grinned, expecting a sweet surprise. The room was alive with chatter. The clink of glasses, the soft glow of fairy lights I'd strung across the ceiling. I untied the ribbon, peeled back the wrapping, and pulled out a stack of papers. My eyes caught the bold, black letters at the top: eviction notice. The world stopped. My hand froze, the papers trembling slightly. What is this?" I whispered, my voice barely mine. Mom blinked rapidly, looking at the floor. Dad's shoulders slumped, his gaze fixed on the wall. Torin shifted uncomfortably, and Isolde, she just smiled. That same polished smile, but sharper, like a blade catching light. "Elowin, we didn't want to do this today. But it's time to be honest," Mom said, her words thin as a breeze. "The house is still under your aunt and uncle's name. This neighborhood's value is skyrocketing. It's the right moment to sell." I stood up, the chair scraping harshly against the floor. "Sell? This is my home. I rebuilt every inch of it, every wall, every window. I sank my savings into this place." My voice cracked, but I couldn't stop. Isolde set her glass down, her movements slow, deliberate. "Legally, it's not yours, Elowin," she said, her tone smooth as glass. "I'm just helping the family make a smart choice. The market's hot, you'll get a good payout." A laugh escaped me, dry and hollow. "A payout? This is my birthday gift? An eviction notice?" I scanned their faces, Mom's averted eyes, Dad's silence, Torin's tense jaw. Isolde's smile didn't waver. "You've all been planning this," I said, the realization sinking like a stone. "How long?" No one answered. The silence was suffocating, heavier than the scent of cake still lingering in the air. "Get out," I said, my voice low but steady. "All of you, out of my house, now." They filed out, one by one, heads bowed like they were leaving a funeral. Isolde lingered at the door, her scarf fluttering as she turned. "You're overreacting, Elowin. Don't let emotions cloud your judgment." The door clicked shut behind her, and I stood alone, the papers still in my hand, my heart pounding. The house felt too quiet, the warmth of the party replaced by a cold ache. I should have cried, screamed, something, but all I felt was a spark, sharp and stubborn. If Isolde thought I'd roll over and let her take my home, she didn't know me at all. The eviction notice lay on my coffee table like a bruise that wouldn't fade. I sat in the armchair by the window, the late afternoon sun spilling through the lace curtains I'd sewn myself, casting soft shadows across the oak floor. My house on Pinewood Lane was still, the echoes of laughter from the birthday party now a distant hum. I should have been a mess, tears, rage, anything, but instead, my mind was racing, picking apart the pieces of what had just happened. Isolde's smile, sharp as a shard of glass, kept flashing in my head. When had my cousin, the one who'd always shown up with a bottle of Prosecco and a quick laugh, turned into someone who could orchestrate this? Her words replayed. Legally. It's not yours. Elowen. The way she'd said it. So calm, so calculated, it wasn't just about money. There was something else. Something personal. I thought back to her casual comments over the years, how she'd linger in the showroom, eyeing my designs, asking about property values with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'd brushed it off as her bank teller curiosity. But now those moments felt like threads in a web I hadn't seen. I grabbed my phone and dialed Leora, my best friend since college. She was a data analyst, the kind of person who could find patterns in chaos. And I needed her clarity now. Leora, it's me, I said when she picked up after 2 rings. Something's happened. I need you here. An hour later, Leora was at my door. Her dark curls tied back, laptop bag slung over her shoulder. She didn't ask questions, just gave me a quick hug and marched to the dining table. Pulling out her computer. Talk, she said, her fingers already flying across the keyboard. I told her everything, the party, the eviction notice, Isolde's cold smile. I slid the papers toward her. Isolde said the neighbors complained about my renovations, that I didn't have permits. But I know I filed every single one. Leora's eyes narrowed as she scanned the notice. If these complaints are real, they'd be in the city's system. And if they're not, she didn't finish. But I knew what she meant. Fakes. Lies. I kept digital copies of your permits, she said, pulling up a folder on her laptop. Every blueprint, every approval. Let's see what we're dealing with. While Leora dug into her files, I knew I needed answers from someone closer to the mess. Torin, my brother. We'd been tight growing up, but his engineering job had pulled him away, and we hadn't talked much lately. Still, if anyone in the family might crack, it was him. I texted. Meet me. Urgent. Tomorrow, 7 a.m. The rusty mug. The next morning, I got to the cafe early, clutching a cup of chamomile tea to steady my nerves. Torin walked in, his work boots scuffing the floor, his face drawn like he hadn't slept. You knew, didn't you? I said, skipping pleasantries. About the eviction notice. He sighed, rubbing his neck. Yeah, Isolde told Mom and Dad a couple weeks ago. Said you couldn't handle the house. That your renovations were causing legal trouble. She had documents. Elowen, complaints, fines. It looked real. His voice was heavy, like he was carrying the guilt of believing her. I slid Leora's folder across the table. The permits neatly organized. These are my permits. Torin. All legal. All verified. Isolde lied. He flipped through a few pages, his jaw tightening as the truth sank in. She showed us papers, but never let us see them up close. I trusted her. There's more, I said, leaning forward. Isolde's not just selling the house for a quick buck. She's got a plan. Something bigger. I need you to help me figure it out. Torin met my eyes, his expression shifting from shame to resolve. I'm in. I should have questioned her sooner. Back at home, Leora had news. She'd called a contact at the city's land records office. A guy named Theo who owed her a favor. The complaint Isolde mentioned? It's not in the system, she said, turning her laptop toward me. And the name on the supposed neighbor's petition? Doesn't match anyone on Pinewood Lane. It's a ghost. A chill ran through me. This wasn't just a family betrayal, it was a setup. Deliberate and deep. Isolde wasn't playing small. I looked at the eviction notice again. Its cold words staring back. My house, my showroom, my life's work, it was all under threat. But I wasn't the same Elowen who'd smiled naively at that silver envelope. I was awake now, and I was going to fight. The discovery that Isolde's complaint was a fake lit a fire in me. But it also made my stomach twist. This wasn't just about my house on Pinewood Lane anymore, it was about something bigger. Something calculated. I sat with Leora in my showroom, the late evening light filtering through the stained glass window I'd restored, casting fractured colors across the floor. My sketches and fabric swatches were still spread out on the work table, a reminder of the life I'd built here. But now, every creak of the house felt like a warning. Leora was hunched over her laptop, her fingers a blur. If Isolde faked that complaint. She's not working alone, she said, her voice steady but urgent. No way she pulled this off without help. We need to know who's backing her. I nodded, my mind racing back to Isolde's polished demeanor at the party. The way she'd talked about the market like it was her playground. As a bank teller, she knew numbers, deals, maybe even the right people. But this felt beyond her usual scope. Torin came through for us the next day. He'd been digging through his own contacts in the construction world. And one name kept popping up, Gideon Vale. A real estate developer with a reputation for snapping up historic properties and turning them into glossy commercial projects. Isolde's been seen with him, Torin said over coffee at my kitchen table, his voice low. A colleague saw them at a zoning meeting last month. Talking about Pinewood Lane. I think they're planning to tear down your house for a shopping plaza. A shopping plaza. The words hit like a punch. My roses, my skylight, the walls I'd painted with my own hands, reduced to concrete and neon signs. I gripped my mug, the heat grounding me. We need proof, I said. Leora was already on it. Cross-referencing public records. By nightfall, she'd found a land survey filed with the city, listing my address, 214 Pinewood Lane. The signatures of my parents were scrawled at the bottom. But they looked off, too angular. Not the familiar loops I knew from years of birthday cards. Worse, the notary seal belonged to a woman named Clara Hensley, who, according to Leora's quick search, had retired 3 years ago. Forged signatures, an invalid notary, this is serious. Elowin, Leora said, her eyes wide. They're building a case to make your renovations look illegal, so they can seize the house cheap. I felt a chill, not just from the betrayal but from the precision of it. Isolde wasn't just greedy, she was ruthless. Then the threats started. I woke one morning to a shattered window in my showroom. Glass glittering across the floor like fallen stars. A brick lay in the middle, wrapped with a note in jagged handwriting. Stop now, or you'll regret it. My heart pounded, but I didn't call the police yet. Instead, I swept up the glass, my hands shaking, and started searching the house for anything out of place. In the attic, tucked behind a box of old fabric samples, I found a USB drive I'd never seen before. My pulse raced as I plugged it into Leora's laptop. The USB was a goldmine and a nightmare. Emails between Isolde and Gideon laid out their plan. Buy my house at a discount after legal complications. Demolish it, and build a boutique mall. One email from Gideon made my blood run cold. If Elowin fights, we'll make it personal. She'll back off. But another, from Isolde, caught me off guard. I don't have a choice. Gideon, you know what's at stake for me. What was that about? Was Isolde being pushed into this? I showed the USB to Leora and Torin that night. The three of us crowded around my dining table. Isolde's not calling all the shots, I said, pointing to her email. Gideon's got something on her. Torin frowned, his engineer's mind piecing it together. If we can figure out what he's holding over her, we might crack this wide open. Leora nodded, already typing. I'll dig into Gideon's company. Vale Properties. If he's done this before, there'll be a trail. I looked out at the backyard. The roses barely visible in the moonlight. This house wasn't just my showroom, it was my proof. My legacy. Every tile, every brushstroke was a piece of who I was. Isolde and Gideon thought they could erase that. But they didn't know the fight I had in me. The broken window, the note, the USB, they weren't just threats. They were fuel. I turned back to Leora and Torin, my voice steady. We're not stopping. Whatever Gideon's planning, we're going to tear it apart. The USB drive changed everything. Those emails between Isolde and Gideon weren't just proof, they were a map of their betrayal. And I was done being their pawn. My house on Pinewood Lane, with its wild roses and hand-painted tiles, was worth more than any shopping plaza. And I wasn't going to let them steal it. But I knew I couldn't fight this alone. Not with forged documents and bricks through my window. I needed someone who could turn evidence into a weapon. That's when I called Sigrid Lynn, a lawyer I'd met when I signed the lease for my showroom. She was sharp, mid-40s, with a calm voice that could cut through chaos. I met her at her office downtown, a small space cluttered with legal books and a single potted fern. I spread out everything, Leora's permit files, the fake land survey, the USB emails, even a photo of the brick and its threatening note. Sigrid leaned back in her chair, her eyes scanning the papers. This isn't just a family dispute, Elowin, she said, tapping the forged signatures. This is organized fraud. If we can tie Isolde and Gideon to these fakes, you'll keep your house, and they'll face real consequences. I nodded, my resolve hardening, but I didn't just want to win in court. I wanted Isolde and Gideon to face the truth in front of everyone they'd tried to impress. Sigrid raised an eyebrow when I told her my plan. Risky, she said, but if you're set on exposing them publicly, we'll need airtight evidence. She agreed to build a legal case while I prepared for something bigger. Back home, Leora and Torin were still digging. Leora had found a press release. Gideon's company, Vale Properties, was hosting a press conference in a week to unveil their Pinewood Plaza project. My address was listed as the centerpiece. This is our shot, I said, my voice steady. We crash that event and show everyone what they're really doing. Torin hesitated. It's bold, but dangerous. Gideon's not the type to back down. I met his eyes. Neither am I. Then came the game changer. I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Elowin. I know what Isolde and my brother are doing. Meet me at the Blue Sparrow Cafe, 5 p.m. It was signed, Bryn. I vaguely remembered Bryn, Gideon's younger sister, from a networking event Isolde had dragged me to. She'd been quiet, hovering on the edges with a polite smile, working in marketing for some startup. Why was she reaching out now? At the cafe, Bryn was already there, her short blonde hair tucked behind her ears, her hands fidgeting with a coffee cup. I'm sorry to drag you here, she said, her voice soft but firm. But I can't stay silent anymore. She slid a USB across the table. This has everything, emails, blueprints, even a recording of Gideon and Isolde planning to frame you. They're using fake documents to make your renovations look illegal. I stared at her, my mind racing. Why are you helping me? Bryn's eyes darkened. Gideon wasn't always like this. But he's turned our family's business into a machine for greed. Isolde's in deep because of a financial scam she pulled years ago. Gideon's holding it over her. She tried to warn you once. Left a voicemail, but he found out and shut her down. I leaned back, processing. Isolde, a victim? It didn't erase her betrayal, but it added a layer I hadn't seen. The USB was a goldmine. The recording captured Gideon's cold voice. Once Elowin's out, the house is ours for pennies. The plaza will seal our reputation. Isolde sounded tense. Just make sure no one traces the notary. I'm risking everything. Bryn also handed me an invitation to the press conference. Blank but official. I handle the guest list backups. She said, you'll get in with this. That night, I sat with Leora and Torin in my kitchen. The USB's contents spread across the table. Leora's eyes gleamed. We've got them. Forged signatures. An illegal notary. And now this recording, it's bulletproof. Torin nodded, his jaw set. I'll be there with you. Isolde's my cousin too. And I let her fool me once. Not again. I looked at the invitation, my fingers tracing its edges. The press conference was my chance to turn Gideon's spotlight on his lies. Sigrid was preparing the legal side. But this was personal. Isolde thought she could erase my home, my work, my life. Gideon thought he could bully us all. They were about to learn what happened when you underestimated someone who'd built her world from the ground up. The night of Gideon's press conference felt electric, like the air before a storm. I stood in the grand lobby of the Crestwood Hotel, my heart steady but my palms damp. I'd chosen a simple navy dress and my grandmother's silver locket, a quiet reminder of the home I was fighting for, the house on Pinewood Lane, with its wild roses and hand-painted tiles. The invitation Bryn gave me got me past security. And now I was here, surrounded by chandeliers, clinking glasses, and the hum of investors and reporters. Gideon and Isolde were the stars of the evening. Him in a tailored suit, her in a sleek emerald gown, both smiling like they'd already won. I caught Isolde's eye as I slipped into the ballroom. Her smile faltered, just for a second, before she masked it. Gideon didn't notice me, too busy shaking hands with a gray-haired man in a pinstripe suit. I clutched the USB Sigrid had prepped, loaded with every piece of evidence we'd gathered. Leora and Torin were in the crowd, ready to back me up. Bryn was somewhere nearby, her presence a quiet anchor. This was it, the moment to tear down their lies. I stepped to the front, near the stage where a screen loomed for Gideon's presentation. As a reporter finished asking about Pinewood Plaza, I raised a glass and tapped it gently with a spoon. The room quieted, heads turning. "Excuse me," I said, my voice clear. "Before we celebrate, there's something everyone needs to know about this project, and the people behind it." Gideon's eyes locked on me, his jaw tightening. Isolde froze, her hand gripping her clutch. I plugged the USB into the projector, and the screen lit up with a blueprint: Pinewood Plaza. Address 214 Pinewood Lane, my home. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "This is my house," I said, facing the room. "I've lived there for years. Rebuilt it with my own hands. But this project was never approved by me. The documents you've seen are fake." The screen shifted to the land survey, my parents' signatures glaringly forged. Then the notary seal, stamped by a retired Clara Hensley. Gasps sounded as I played the recording. Gideon's voice cold. "Once Elowin's out, the house is ours for pennies." Isolde's voice followed, strained. "Just make sure no one traces the notary." The room was silent, the air heavy with shock. The pinstripe-suited man, Jameson Holt, the lead investor, stood. "Forged documents? Can you prove this?" Sigrid stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "The city's legal department has verified these signatures and seals are invalid. This is criminal fraud." Gideon opened his mouth, but then came the twist. Isolde stood, her face pale, her hands trembling. "Stop," she said, her voice breaking. "It's true, Elowin. I lied, but I didn't have a choice." The crowd leaned in, stunned. Gideon knew I'd faked accounts at the bank years ago. He threatened to expose me, ruin my life. "I tried to warn you, but he stopped me." She looked at me, eyes wet. "I'm sorry." Bryn emerged from the crowd, her voice steady. "I gave Elowin the recording. My brother's gone too far, and I won't let him destroy more lives." Gideon's face crumpled, his composure gone. Two plainclothes officers entered, one approaching him. "Mr. Vale, you're under investigation for fraud and coercion. We need you to come with us." The investors began to leave, Holt tossing his project folder on the table with disgust. I turned to my parents, who'd arrived late and stood at the back, their faces ashen. "I had to do this," I said, my voice soft but raw. "I couldn't let them take my home and call me the liar." Mom reached for my hand, her eyes brimming. "We were wrong, Elowin. We didn't know." I squeezed her hand, then stepped away, the weight of the night settling in. Gideon was led out, Isolde following, her head bowed. The truth was out, but the scars of their betrayal still stung. Yet as I stood there, the locket warm against my skin, I knew one thing. I'd fought for my house, my truth, and I wasn't done yet. 4 months after the press conference, spring had woven its magic over Pinewood Lane. The wild roses in my backyard bloomed brighter than ever, their pink petals catching the morning light. My house, the one I'd fought tooth and nail to keep, stood strong, its oak floors polished, its skylight gleaming, its walls still whispering the story of my resilience. What I hadn't expected was how the storm that nearly tore it down would bring me a new kind of family. One built on trust instead of blood. The house wasn't just my showroom anymore. I'd turned it into a community design studio, a place where local artists and students could learn, create, and dream. Every weekend, the dining room buzzed with workshops, people sketching furniture, mixing paint, or laughing over coffee. Leora was there almost daily, her laptop swapped for a notepad full of ideas for our next project. "You've got to add a mural to the back wall," she'd say, her curls bouncing as she gestured wildly. "Something bold, like you." Torin showed up on Sundays with his wife and their 2 kids, who loved running through the garden. He'd roll up his sleeves and help me sand down old chairs or fix a creaky stair, his engineer's precision making every task smoother. "I should have had your back sooner," he said once, wiping sawdust from his hands. I just smiled. "You're here now, that's enough." Bryn became a regular too. Her quiet strength a steady presence. After Gideon's arrest, she'd left Vale Properties and joined a local heritage group, working to protect Pinewood Lane's historic homes. One afternoon, as we repotted plants for the garden, she handed me a small brass plaque. The neighborhood council approved it, she said. Engraved on it were the words, "The Elowin House." A beacon of Pinewood Lane. My throat tightened, and I hugged her. No words needed. This house wasn't just mine anymore, it belonged to everyone who saw its worth. Isolde's name rarely came up. The media had moved on after her suspended sentence for fraud. And she'd left town, working at a community center to make amends. I didn't hate her anymore. Not after learning how Gideon had trapped her with her past mistakes. Forgiveness wasn't easy, but I was learning to let go. Piece by piece. My parents were trying, too. They'd moved to a quiet town an hour away, as if distance could soften the guilt. One evening, Mom showed up alone, her hands clutching a canvas wrapped in brown paper. "I found this in your grandmother's attic," she said, her voice soft. It was a painting of the house, done in her bold, swirling strokes, the roses vivid against the faded siding. She always said this place held our family's heart. I hung it above the fireplace. And when Mom left, I opened the windows, letting the breeze carry away the last of my bitterness. I hosted my first design exhibition that spring. Nothing grand, just a gathering in the backyard under strings of Edison bulbs. Leora brought her famous lemon tarts. Torrin set up tables, and Bryn hung photos of the house's transformation along the fence. Neighbors, students, even clients came, their laughter filling the air. Torrin raised a glass as the sun dipped low. "To Elowin," he said, his voice steady. "She didn't just save a house, she showed us what it means to stand for what's right." Glasses clinked, and I lifted mine, my eyes on the roses, the painting, the faces around me. Later, when everyone had gone, I sat on the porch steps, the night air cool against my skin. The house felt alive, every creak and shadow a testament to what I'd fought for. It wasn't just a roof or walls, it was my courage. My love, my proof that I could rise from betrayal stronger than before. I thought back to that birthday. The silver envelope, the cold words of the eviction notice. It had hurt, deeper than I could have imagined. But it had also led me here, to a home reborn. To people who stood by me. To a version of myself I hadn't known I could be. No one could take that away. Not ever. And as the stars blinked above Pinewood Lane, I knew I wasn't just home. I was whole,